Well, let us know what and why sculpting is required, what is normal maps, and how sculpting can be extracted to give the maximum output and give the best renders that can be possibly done with the help of Blender. So for that being said and done, I will go to sculpting, and here the object is already very low poly. So what I will do is I will go to wireframe mode so that I could show you the wireframe, and go to remesh. I have made a video on this as well, and the voxel size I will reduce it to 0.01 and remesh it so that we could get a very dense mesh. So I have remeshed it, and now I will remove the wireframe. Now if I click and drag, the sculpting is taking place and it is very smooth. Now I want to add some details to it. For that I will go to texture and I will click on new. Now by clicking on this, Blender will go over here. You can click over here or you can click over here. Both are doing the same thing. So if I click over here, we get this window, this panel, and here in the open, what we can do is we can get this alpha brushes. What this alpha brushes is, if I open this image over here and then go to texture, it will be loaded up here. What these are actually is, if you go on Google and write for ZBrush alpha brushes, you will get this different kinds of patterns in black and white. White will be protruding outside, black will be protruding inside. So that's how these brushes are made, and you can click on any brush, then right click, open image in new tab, let it open in the new page, and then save the image, and it will be something like this. This is the texture which I have used, and now if I click and drag, the texture is being applied as a displacement over our object. And what happens is, now my texture is tiled. Now what happens if I click and drag over here, it is going to apply a tile texture like bathroom tiles. So I don't want that. I want it to be anchored at one place. I want it to be applied over the area plane, and the stroke is anchored. And now if I click and drag over here, I can rotate the way it is being applied. That's how it is being protruded outside. This is a little bit too much. I want a little subtle effect. So for that, you can go and reduce the strength over here, or tap Shift F and bring it somewhere up to here, and then click and drag. You will get a subtle effect, a very subtle effect. Click and drag over here. You can control click and drag as well to get a reverse effect. Shift F, get a little bit more of this effect. Control click and drag, so you will get a negative effect. This is positive and this is protruding inside the object. But the problem with this is a very high poly object. It has to be converted and extracted to make it a low poly object. So for that, I will go to object mode, and here add mesh and cube. So we have this low poly object and this very high poly object. So now whatever we need to do is, we need to do on low poly object. We need to explain Blender that low poly object is going to take all the information from the high poly. So select the low poly. If you want, you can name here as well low poly, and this cube as high poly. So now we need to select low poly and then go to shading tab, and here I will go to solid mode and click a new material. We get a new material over here, and here we are interested in normal map. We are going to create a normal map. So Shift A, S, normal map and click over here, insert this normal into this one, and then we want an image which has all the information of normals. Normal, what actually is normal is, for those who don't know, if this is a plane and this line is perpendicular to it, this line is called as normal. So with that being said and done, let me add one more node over here, image texture, and click over here and insert this color node to in the color node, and here I want a new image. I will click on new, tap normal and click on OK. So we got a normal over here, and this is the image editor, and here I will take normal as well, so that we could see what is actually happening with normal. With that done, what we actually need to now do is go to render properties and search for bake. Bake will not be visible because we are using the render engine Eevee. For bake to appear, we need to change it to cycles. If we change to cycles, we get this option called bake. I will click and drag this over the top and click over here to expand this, and first of all I will reduce the samples, 128 for viewport and 128 for render as well, and then the bake type is going to be normal, and selected to active, because we are going to give the information of high poly to low poly, so that's why I selected to active. And extrusion, how much of this protruding or extrusion is taking place, that value has to be given. That we can do with the help of measure tool. What you can do is you can click over here, a small arrow over here, and then you can click on measure tool, and then you can click and drag over here to see how much outwardly that it is extruded outside. This is somewhere around 0.31. So if I insert instead of 31, if I insert 0.11, let's make a mistake and see what will happen. And now what we need to do is, after inserting this value, we need to select the high poly object, shift select the low poly object, and now make sure that you select this image texture and go to bake button and click on the bake button. So now the texture baking is taking place, 38%, 50%, 87%, and now we have got the normal. Now because the extrusion was kept at 0.11, beyond 0.11 was just cut off, so that's why we are getting these patches, these green colored patches. This indicates that there is something getting cut off. So what we need to do is we need to increase the extrusion 0.31 and make sure that you select this object. Make sure that you first select the high poly object, then you shift select the low poly object, and then you click on this image node and then click on the bake button. It's going to texture bake it. This is called texture baking, normal map baking. 38%, 50%, 87%, and boom, bye bye, it has been extracted and applied over our low poly object. What that actually means is, if I take this high poly object, let me select this so that measurement value is hidden away. Let me hide the high poly object, and this is the low poly object. If I go to rendered mode, we have the details of the high poly on the low poly object. This is actually a low poly object. If I select this and hit tab, it is a very low poly object. It has only 8 vertices, 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom. So this is not a very high poly mesh, but it gives information and behaves like a high poly mesh. Let me bring this light GZ down a bit, G shift Z over here a bit, G shift Z. So it is going to behave as if G shift Z, as if there is a lot of sculpting had been done over here. And remember that this is a very low poly object, it is not a very high poly object. And let me reduce the intensity of this light from 1000 to 100 and GX. So it is going to behave as if the details have been applied over this object. Let me take this G over here. You can see that this object is behaving as if it is a very high poly sculpted object. So that's why sculpting is needed, that's why normal map extraction is needed. And if you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, or leave a wonderful comment. And you can support me through Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, and the phone number is 8600647757. And if you want, you can support me by going on any Blender Veda ad and clicking on the description, and in the description you will get a Patreon page. You can click on the Patreon page, it will take you to a website, and here you can join in any of these levels and support me financially. Or you can at least see the videos that are falling on this, at least see the ads which are completely falling on these videos completely, so that the revenue generated will be completely used for the research in the Blender. So with that being said and done, we can know why sculpting is necessary, why normal maps are necessary, and what actually is a normal map, and how a high poly object can be converted into a low poly object. So that's it for this, guys. Till then, try to see it, learn it, understand it. I will see you in the next video.